In the great desert plains of the land of enchantment, a slender woman is found walking through the desert, collecting skeletons on her way. Though she boasted an artistic career that spanned almost a century, she refused to stand in the spotlight. Instead, she quietly positioned herself inside of an adobe house, observing the landscape that shall later become her canvas. Georgia O'Keeffe was a woman celebrated for her individual artistic identity. As one of the best-known artists of the entire 20th century, O'Keeffe, even today, continues to be praised for her bravery and expression. But the story ends here for many individuals who refuse to see past her accomplishments. Georgia O'Keeffe's struggles in her personal life resulted in romantic tragedy, but allowed her to become critically successful in an artistic world that was once improbable for her to access. This is The Duality of Art, how Georgia O'Keeffe transformed from tortured artist to the mother of American modernism. Georgia O'Keeffe was born in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin on November 15, 1887. From a very young age, O'Keeffe's revolutionary spirit was undeniable. O'Keeffe's parents collected enough money to enroll their daughter in the Art Institute of Chicago and the Art Students League in New York City. After 1908, O'Keeffe's family could no longer afford to send her back to study, and in order to help her family, O'Keeffe resorted to commercial art in Chicago. Reflecting on those years, O'Keeffe admitted that she was miserable, being paid piece by piece and sacrificing her success in New York for low-level art without freedom of creative expression. Despite teaching for a few years, O'Keeffe never lost her craving for critical reaction and success in the artistic world. One of her friends from art school, Anita Pulitzer, introduced O'Keeffe's drawings to Alfred Stieglitz, who was already a legendary and established photographer that O'Keeffe particularly admired at that time. Stieglitz was impressed, and had reportedly asked Pulitzer to tell O'Keeffe that her drawings were the purest, finest, sincerest things that had entered 291 in a long while. Astonished, he stated, "Finally, a woman on paper." Stieglitz ended up providing O'Keeffe with her first exhibition on May 23, 1916. Despite this sudden burst in critical success, O'Keeffe's life continued to be miserable, with her family members falling ill and going to war, no money to launch an artistic career, and contracting a serious case of the flu in 1918. Stieglitz, heartbroken with O'Keeffe's situation, invited her to permanently live with him in New York. Little did she know, this relationship would blossom into one of the most famous romantic stories in modern art history. Struggling and desperate to paint, O'Keeffe decided to move to New York and live with Stieglitz, which quickly became a romantic relationship. Stieglitz was obsessed with O'Keeffe, photographing her delicate condition from years of illness. The most important sin of this affair was that Stieglitz was already in a 30-year-long relationship with Emily Obermeyer and had his daughter, Kitty. O'Keeffe remained very private with Stieglitz and quietly married him after his divorce with Emmy. Allowing him to take very sexual and provocative images of her figure, O'Keeffe became Stieglitz's muse. However, in early 1921, without O'Keeffe's consent, Stieglitz made their relationship public by posting O'Keeffe's nude photos in his intimate gallery.
She was uncomfortable with that attention. Initially, she did not really understand how that attention from collectors and the media might have an impact on her career or even her as a person, but it's clear that she became aware and did as much as she could to distance herself from the perception that she was just Stieglitz's mistress.
However, Stieglitz wielded an immense amount of power in deciding the course of American modernism. After Stieglitz continued to show numerous galleries of O'Keeffe's works to the public, the amount of media attention O'Keeffe received skyrocketed. Being that O'Keeffe was no longer a vulnerable woman that Stieglitz could photograph at his own will, he developed an intimate relationship with another young woman, Dorothy Norman. After finding out about the affair in late 1928, O'Keeffe was hospitalized for severe depression. "If I can keep my courage and leave Stieglitz, I plan to go west." Finally finding that courage a few months later, O'Keeffe took a train to New Mexico.
But she sort of brings back with her bones and silk flowers and other kind of objects that she's collected. Those serve as an inspiration to her, and she begins to paint those subjects back in her studio in New York.
Mabel Dodge Lujan, an arts patron that recommended O'Keeffe to visit New Mexico, wrote in a letter before O'Keeffe's arrival, "O'Keeffe is coming out in May. Finally, someone will paint the country." Little did anyone know, this area of New Mexico is now known colloquially as O'Keeffe Country. For O'Keeffe, the hardest aspect of moving away was establishing a sense of emotional independence. "You have always told me you do not know what love is. I have had to do with mine what I could. I think I must stay here a while." That sense of independence slowly helped O'Keeffe recover both mentally and physically. Despite this seemingly steady progress, O'Keeffe's recovery proved to be more difficult when she found out that Stieglitz and Norman's affair had continued to grow more serious in her absence. O'Keeffe suffered a second mental breakdown in 1933 and was hospitalized for 2 months. The pain was so traumatizing that O'Keeffe could not work between 1933 and early 1934. However, New Mexico continued to be an incredible source of inspiration for O'Keeffe through her tumultuous recovery. O'Keeffe discovered Ghost Ranch in 1934. "As soon as I saw it, I knew I must have it." As she continued painting what truly moved her, O'Keeffe steadily recognized that she was a free and independent artist that could no longer be contained by her own anxiety. She proudly stated to Mabel Dodge Lujan in the fall of 1934, "If he sleeps with another woman, it is a little thing." After Stieglitz's death in 1946, O'Keeffe permanently moved to New Mexico. Towards the end of her career, O'Keeffe created some of her most famous works. She passed away peacefully on March 6, 1986 in Santa Fe, New Mexico, at 98 years old.
The men were all talking about the great American novel, the great American play, the great American, it was the great American everything. And I thought they didn't know anything about America. A lot of them had never been across the Hudson.
While the personal growth O'Keeffe experienced at Ghost Ranch was astounding, the evolution in her art is the true legacy of that journey. When lovers of art think of Georgia O'Keeffe today, they are not prone to think of the skyscrapers that numerous modern artists were tackling in the 1920s. Though her large flower blossoms still reign as some of her most prized pieces, the true originality and revolutionary spirit of O'Keeffe is far best shown through her honest portrayal of the American Southwest. People see the magnificent curves of bone. They see the vibrant colors mixed in abstract patterns. They see the sky above the clouds, the large blossom of the Jimson weed, her true love for a place no artist had dared step foot in. Georgia O'Keeffe today is one of the most acclaimed artists from the 20th century. She was presented with the National Medal of Arts in 1985 and the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1977. In 2014, O'Keeffe's Jimson weed sold for $44.5 million, making it the highest paid painting ever created by a female artist. She was the first American female artist ever regarded as equal in a male-dominated world. O'Keeffe's status as a pioneer of modern art has allowed her to be cited as one of the greatest inspirations for future generations of artists.
As far as what she meant to me, of course, I was thrilled to know that she was a lady that supported herself by her painting. I told my dad that I was going there for that particular reason. It was amazing to me because he said, "You'll never make a living painting." So I found her quite beautiful.
However, the artist I grew up idolizing was actually a damaged woman just trying to paint. The woman standing proudly in front of her adobe house, wearing that black dress that represented no one's style but her own, was a concoction of the strength and success only attainable by someone who's experienced loss and struggle. Georgia O'Keeffe is the perfect embodiment of the concept of the duality of art, how art can triumphantly define one's legacy, but also leave those who have sacrificed with a tragic life. However, Georgia O'Keeffe is best defined by one title. She's not the tortured artist, the mistress, or the damsel in distress. She is, and forever will be, the mother of American modernism.
Under a sky of azure, where balmy breezes blow, kissed by the golden sunshine, is New